the data that the owners have and should have and have access to needs to be open. Kimon and I both in California, and with the recent fires that we had, both Kimon and I and thousands of people had this application called Watch Duty, an actual map that showed the live status of all the fires that were going on in California. But what was remarkable is that having a map that was easily accessible on your phone and have the data that's live, and that was the key. So that's the perspective of what we're trying to do and incorporate this into buildings. We want to describe the path to this idea of having a digital twin. And keep in mind, there's two paths that are possible. One is the consolidation of your existing data. So oftentimes owners have this perspective of, we've got to build everything in Revit that exists. That's in an ideal world with unlimited funds and time. Sure, that would be a great thing. But oftentimes owners don't have that opportunity. So instead, here the idea is to take all these various silos of specific data types, Excel files, PDFs, CAD files, legacy BIM, and consolidate that into a digital twin. Another workflow is taking data-rich models and harvesting that information into the digital twin. Owners that don't have BIMX plans, or owners that do have BIMX plans without defined data requirements, they'll say, we received the models. The problem is we don't know what to do with them, because the data structure from one model to the next, from one design trade to the next, or from one AE firm to the next is always inconsistent. It's not the same. Or sometimes there's no data structure at all. And as a result, they'll output these models to CAD to dumb them down, or they just shelve them. And that's nails across a blackboard, because if those data requirements are defined from the start, these models are data rich. And typically it's 12 to 18 months to somehow regurgitate all this information that the architects, engineers, and contractors have provided in their PDFs and CADs, and that it just takes way too much time. With data-rich models, it's literally hours after handover that you can harvest this into a digital twin and have full access to the maps, the locations of the rooms and assets, and the data attached to them, literally within hours, using a handheld device.
Apart from the time saving, if it takes 6 to 18 months, it means you don't have access to that information when your building is started up. So it's not just a time thing. The other issue, it is a risk thing. It's a standards of care that the owners are not delivering information back that's needed for day-to-day operations, which means if something bad happens, you don't have access to information to react to it. You have wild monkeys around the building or other risk factors, fires, whatever, right? So my point of view is that not only is it a dollar savings or a total cost, which is important, it's also a risk factor. What's the risk of not doing this? Not only is there a risk of money, it's a risk of people's lives. And we've heard at the NFMT show, there's actually risk factors coming up even from school districts getting sued because they don't have proper locks on the doors or whatever in case they have a shooter or whatever, right? So there's all these kind of resiliency factors that come into play that if you have and I call it a dumb building because there's so much hype out there about smart buildings and smart cities. They're not smart, they're stupid. They're still stupid. And there's so much room to improve, which means we're starting almost from zero. I know there's a lot of amazing things happening, but there's only small pockets. There's not a single use case. There's one use case where you're designing and constructing, another use case where you're trying to transfer it over into operations. Then there's another use case of the technician trying to find that piece of equipment to maintain it. They all use different tools, but if that data is not connected in between, that's where you end up with silos. You have silo A, B, and C not talking to each other. All of a sudden you have, well, what's the piece of equipment? Oh, we don't have it in the model yet because it's taking 18 months to get it in. Oh, let's go out and hire somebody to go find that thing, which we've seen over and over, owners making that mistake. They pay for the same thing again and again and again because they don't even realize they have it. But with digital twins, if you, from the execution plan perspective and the contracting perspective, you put it into the requirements, then everyone that's providing that consulting and tools for you allows that data to flow into the right application. Maybe another angle on data ownership is also important from an ISO perspective. Actually, and data is an asset. Therefore, you must, as an owner, declare that I own my data. And whatever application you're selling me, I want you to show how I can use that same data in other applications. Because as a vendor, I know I've seen this out there over and over again. Software tries to get you into their silo. That's the goal. I want to sell you an application. I want to get all your data in my silo, and I want to make it very difficult for it to leave. We call it the Hotel California. Check in, never check out. So execution plan wise, owners must demand that data flows regardless of what silo gets put into it. Silos aren't necessarily bad as long as you can get the data back out of the silo. But a silo that's a one-way trip is a black box.